Rojbash, hun bikhair hatin. It's a pleasure to have you join with us today for Zahra Institute Special Art Panel, Almost Free, a conversation on Kurdish contemporary art. I am Sharina Sharani, Outreach Coordinator here at the Institute. For those who are joining us for the first time, Zahra Institute is a graduate institution offering Master of Arts and certificate programs in Kurdish Studies and Critical Muslim Studies, along with Kurmanji and Sorani language courses for all levels. Applications for our spring semester will be opening soon, so if you're interested, please visit our website. Among others, I manage our online speaker series. It brings together scholars, artists, and students from around the world. Today's art panel is part of that series. And looking ahead, we're excited to welcome Mahshuk Yamach on November 12th for a talk on Kurdish madrasa culture. And in December, we'll feature presentations on Kurdish architecture and Kurdish history. You can check out these upcoming events in our fall speaker series flyer. Our program today will begin with a welcome from our event moderator, Şener Özmen. Following his introduction, I will present our panelists. We'll then move on to the panelist dialogue, during which Şener will lead a conversation with the panelists, exploring their work and perspectives on Kurdish contemporary art. After that, we will open the floor to audience questions before wrapping it up with some closing remarks. To learn more about our events and academic programs, we invite you to go to our website, www.zahrainstitute.org. You can also follow us on social media on Facebook, X, Instagram, LinkedIn for updates and announcements. Please note that if you need to step away or would like to revisit this event, a recording will be made available on Zahra Institute's YouTube channel and Facebook page in the coming days. And with that, I will hand a virtual mic over to our moderator, Şener Özmen, who will introduce our event today.
Thank you very much, Edna. Hello and welcome. Today we have gathered for the online panel, Almost Free, a conversation on Kurdish contemporary art, the diaspora and curatorial practices, held in collaboration with the Zahra Institute. My name is Şener Özmen. I'm a Kurdish artist and writer currently living and working in Chicago. As you can imagine, trying to fully unpack Kurdish contemporary art within 1.5 to 2 hour panel is a difficult task. This is a field we have only been able to clearly define in academic terms since the early 2000s. Still, we can celebrate the fact that contemporary Kurdish art engages with global audiences, with Kurdish artists showing their work in major exhibitions and building their own curatorial networks. But let's be clear, this institutional representation does not always mean genuine acceptance of the artist's Kurdish identity. Too often, their work are co-opted and framed by the homogenizing nationalistic perspective of the state in which they live. This is where the concept of diaspora comes into play, to borrow an argument from the famous Kurdish novelist Mehmet Uzun. While modern Kurdish literature may flourish in diaspora, where conditions and conducive its free development, the same cannot be said of contemporary Kurdish art. Unlike modern Kurdish literature, contemporary Kurdish art emerged exactly where had to, on its own soil. And when I say this, I am speaking specifically with northern Kurdistan in mind. So let us get to the core of the issue. The fragmentation of Kurdistan profoundly impacted our art scene until early 2000. We had little knowledge of contemporary art practices in other parts of Kurdistan. This created a peculiar, isolated dynamic. For example, a young artist in northern Kurdistan who grew up influenced by the art scene in Istanbul, which come to believe there was no such thing as contemporary art in the south, east, or west of Kurdistan. The artists might believe their own local modernism to be progressive than that of their neighbors, a kind of cultural miracle. Indeed, miracle was not the wrong word. The Turkish curator Vasıf once said the miracle was Diyarbakır itself, and the forms of contemporary art emerged there. In the late 1990s, while living and creating art in Diyarbakır, I collaborated with a prominent Turkish curator with a strong presence in Western art circles, particularly in America. This collaboration continued for years, enduring even through periods and intense urban conflict, including the trench wars. At the time, video and photograph were the main mediums. There was no public art, nor sculpture. This unconventional approach led to skepticism from the privileged white Turkish and Kemalist art circle. There's question whether this work could even be considered art. This elite circle answered their own question by claiming there was no such thing as Kurdish contemporary art. Or was there? This field we now describe in Kurdish as Kurdish contemporary art, not free from trauma. The war ISIS weighed again the Kurd in 2013, followed by its pogroms and massacres against the Yazidis, because the earlier liberation struggles, such as the Palestinian movement, and just like that movement, Kurdish resistance, captured the attention of Europe. This period of engagement came to sort the creative expressions. Rojava films, comics, poetry, and narrative proliferated, even leading the founding of Rojava-based film studios. What some might call the process of worlding in effective, all part of Kurdish culture. In this panel, we will focus our discussion on Kurdish contemporary art under the broader heading, Almost Free, a conversation on Kurdish contemporary art. My idea was originally to frame this part of a larger diaspora exhibition. Here, Kurdish artists, writers, critics, editors, organizers, some from the northern Kurdistan, others from the south, will share not only their artistic process, but also concern and the perspective we may not have heard before. I would like to thank in advance all the artists, curators, editors, founders who accepted our invitation and joined us. As for what I mean when I said Kurdish contemporary art, I suspect that will become clearer over the course of the discussions. I owe special thanks to Zahra Institute, to my friends Mücahit Birici, Ibrahim Demir, and Sharina Shahrani, and to all others whose labor made this possible. And one more programming note, Nuvin Barwari will not be with us today because she's recently gave birth. Congratulations, Nuvin, and we wish the best of health to you and your baby. With that, I will turn over to Sharina, who will introduce the members of our panel. Please.
Thank you, Şener. Now it's my honor to introduce you to our panelists. All right, hopefully you can see the screen there of the slides. So you've already met our event moderator, Şener Özmen, who will be guiding today's conversation. So Şener, one second here. So Şener is a Kurdish new media artist, novelist, and director of the Chicago-based Serbest Foundation. In the 1990s and 2000s, he was an active participant in and commentator on the dissident art scene in Istanbul and Diyarbakir. Şener has published articles and books on identity, nationalism, militarism, sexism, art, and literary production in conflict zones, as well as on migration and post-migration trauma. His short films and videos have been shown in prestigious contemporary art museums and group exhibitions. His Kurdish novel, The Competition of Unfinished Stories, translated into English by Nicholas Glastonbury, will be published by Center of Passage later this year. And his latest novel, Gianna Asaiya John Sanders, was recently published by Avesta. All right, and then unfortunately, I received message just before this event that Sherko Abbas, the Kurdish Iraqi artist and filmmaker, will not be able to attend due to family emergency. And And let me then proceed with the slide here. We are pleased to welcome Şener Özmen, who describes his work in the following words, and you can read that with us on this slide. I am an activist and storyteller who uses calligraphy and visual symbols to shed light on issues such as honor killings, genocide, and crimes against humanity. My work seeks to depict the political and socioeconomic realities around me. To address social and political issues, I carry out interdisciplinary art projects that I call investigative art. This concept reflects my interest in the intersection of journalism and art. I believe art can be a tool to resist oppression and expose the cruelties of modern life. Şener Özmen is a stateless, multidisciplinary Kurdish artist. He grew up in South Kurdistan, Bashur, or northern Iraq, and is now based in Bloomington, Indiana. His work has been exhibited in museums and galleries internationally, including Sika Museum of Art in South Korea, the Agora Gallery in New York City, and the Duhok Gallery of Art in Kurdistan. He is a recipient of many awards, grants, and fellowships, including the Dahan Artist of Distinction Award, DC Art Commission Fellowship, and Foundation for Contemporary Arts Grant. And here are a couple images of his work. And next, we welcome Gül Hür, a researcher, writer, and editor working independently from Istanbul. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science and Public Administration from from Hacettepe University, and a master's degree in history from Istanbul Bilgi University. Her current work focuses on contemporary Kurdish art, visual formation, fragmented memory, and non-canonical artistic subjectivities. Together with Şener Özmen, she is the founding editor of Avest Art and is launching an international multilingual art platform under the same name. Gül also works as a content creator, writer, and presenter. We are also honored to have with us Hayal Kartal, who is based in New York. Hayal is an educator and human rights advocate with a deep commitment to cultural rights and community-centered entrepreneurship. Originally from North Kurdistan, Bakur, she migrated to the United States and earned her Master of Arts in Political Science from Brooklyn College, CUNY. And since then, she has devoted herself to building inclusive cultural spaces for the Kurdish community and beyond. Kartal is the founder and president of the New York Kurdish Cultural Center and the director of the annual New York Kurdish Film Festival. She also serves as the US representative for the Rojava Film Commune. And last, but by no means least, we are honored to welcome Engin Sustam. Engin Sustam is a distinguished Kurdish sociologist, curator, art critic, and philosopher. Dr. Sustam studied at Mimar Sinan Fine Arts University in Turkey before attaining his master's and doctoral degrees at the École des Hautes Études en Sciences Sociales in Paris. And he later taught philosophy and sociology at various universities in Turkey. However, after he signed the Academics for Peace petition opposing the war in Turkish Kurdistan, conducted research on the Kurdish question, and took political positions on minority issues in Turkey, he was dismissed from his assistant professorship and went into exile in Europe. He is currently associate professor, art critic, and researcher at the Université Paris 8, where he teaches courses on art pedagogy, aesthetics, and contemporary philosophy. Dr. Sustam has written numerous articles and books on contemporary art, Kurdish cinema, music, decolonial perspectives, social movements, and more. And he has also organized contemporary art exhibitions addressing micropolitics, culture, gender, and memory in Kurdish spaces and the broader art field. He is guest editing a special issue of Etude Kurd titled Art, Cultural Creation, and Decolonizing Approaches in Kurdish Spaces. This issue includes his interview with Şener Özmen on Kurdish contemporary art and will be published in English and in French in December this year. It will feature contributions from many other authors as well. So now we'll transition to the panelist Q&A segment of this event. In this portion, Şener, serving as the event moderator, will begin engaging the panelists with questions about their artistic works and ongoing projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Şener. My first question to Şener Özmen. When did you first encounter Kurdish contemporary art? Especially interested on your installation, Manufactured Democracy. You speak of the destructive ethics of war. Could you unpack that a bit? And of course, we would love to see examples. Please.
Hello, everyone. I'm Şener Özmen, and I'm very pleased and happy to be with you all today. I hope my voice is clear. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for sharing interest on this subject, important subject for all of us. And for the first part of question, I'd like to share some of the work from my professor Namor Rustamzadeh. That was the first time that I heard about Kurdish art. I lived in Duhok, then I moved to Süleymaniye and Hawler to study art. For first time I heard was through my professor Namor Rustamzadeh, and I will share a few images of his work. Namor Rustamzadeh is a Kurdish visual artist originally from is my screen shared now? I'm not sure.
Yes, yes, we can see.
Yeah, originally from Rojhelat, who had escaped persecution by the Iranian regime, and moved to Bashur, as a refugee, who lived in Bashur as a refugee. In 2005, there was an election, which will be a reference in my work when answering the next part of the question about manufactured democracy. In 2005, he created this piece. It's called "My Finger Did Not Get Ink" with his student Uriya Budaghi, and as you can see, this was during the election, and one of the images in the elections of Iraqi election after the invasion was that people put their finger into an ink, and in this project, him and Uriya Budaghi did this performance piece on the street, playing games and painting their faces. That was a first thing, and it shook me intellectually. How did the two Kurdish artists who are living in this Kurdish society did not have the right to vote? And they were asking the same question. I'm living in my country. Why did not I have the right to vote? And one of the other projects that he did was one of the cinema project, where in Hawler the cinemas were closed for years. And another part of this, it tells the society stories where cinemas are not existing anymore, where people can go and gather and watch a film and so on. So that is a question that he had. But what in this performance, what he did, he projected the film on the gate of the cinema, and people walked by. This was there are more pictures. Namu is it serves like a scientist, a Kurdish a scholar, and so on. He has many studies. For example, these scientific studies before the jet engine, when human can fly, he had thought about it in the 80s, and he had his designs. To me, he was like a Kurdish Da Vinci, and also he is working on creating a writing style, which I have an example here, that will unify Kurdish writing, because another reason that we don't understand and we don't see each other work and what is happening in all 4 parts of Kurdistan and even in diaspora is that we don't write in the same alphabet. And so Namu worked on this alphabet to unify Kurdish writing. And I adopted this form of writing in my later on projects as well. And this is another image of the cinema. Then he is also a caricaturist and an amazing caricaturist and realistic artist, as you can see in this image. I don't know if you see it. And also there are other times, like when I lived in Suleimani, there were Aram Gallery where you could see video arts from other part of Kurdistan or in Europe, where artists would come and they would show us their videos. And some artists, for example, I saw Adalat, who came from Europe into Kurdistan, Nahru Shawqi, and all of these artists, also Walid Sidi, of course. But the main character who influenced me and my art was Namu Rustamzadeh and what he did at the time. For the second part of the question about manufactured democracy, in 2019, between 2017 until 2021 or 2022, I was an art handler, truck driver living in DC. And when I traveled across the United States, I'd listen to books because I would drive trucks and listen to a book. I couldn't do much. And one of the books that I was listening to was Manufacturing Consent by Noam Chomsky and Herman. And in this book, it talks about what the government do in manipulating people's opinion to wage war, to keep their global hegemony of war, especially in the United States. And I thought about what had that happened to me when I was living in Kurdistan and as a teenager, because I was a supporter of Iraq War, the second war. Because as a Kurd, I wanted to get rid of Saddam Hussein. That was the main reason. But then what I realized, on also listening to one of the Kurdish poet, Maya Tayyib, describing a little boy who was kidnapped in Kirkuk, aftermath of Iraq War. He narrated the story of a little boy who was 10 years old, was kidnapped by a group of mobs in Kirkuk, and they asked his father for a ransom. Eventually, they collected the ransom from the family and friends and send the money to the mob. The next day, he sees a bag in front of his house, and his son was decapitated in the back. And so that image stuck with me. And I realized at the time how many people had died after the aftermath of Iraq War. And what was that cause? Did anybody take responsibility, or did anybody counted all these individuals who had lost? And I was thought about this many effect of war, the long-lasting effect of the war on people, society, and so on. I had lost relatives after the war. There are many journalists, and so on. I was thinking if there is anybody who is taking that seriously, the victims, the people who had died. So I went into a rabbit hole asking governments, United States and Iraqi governments, if there are any official records. None. And I found, except an organization called Iraqi Body Count, which it's a small non-profit organization who had been looking at the media to collect names, and they sent me this list of Excel sheet. If you could see my screen, a list of the names that they sent me. For example, this was one of the list. It's only 13,000 of estimated 2 million people who had lost their lives. For example, you can see it here. It says family members, no name, son of Nazar, and apparently West Mosul, and so on. The date, the age, but these individuals who have collected, many of them did not have name, only description, a dead woman here, for example. So this became a thought or idea to my project, where I used this into creating a video here. One of the images that you see, I eliminated some of the data, but kept the age, the gender, where the time that they died and where they were. And this lines goes up as of these individual going up to the screen to show that they have passed away. But this also reveals another thing, that these names are in English alphabet. So at the time living in DC, I thought about, why do we have to write in English alphabet to tell the story? And I noticed that many of these had been Kurdish names or Christian names, and they were butchered even in the process of translation, because many of these collecting data were Arab-speaking individual who could not speak Kurdish. So the names were changed. And also, if you translate the Arabic name from Arabic alphabet to, or Arabic speaking names to English alphabet, there are many names that you could not distinguish between Hassan and Hussein and so on, all of these names. So this was another level of disrespect of these individuals who lost their lives. So I began to write these names back in their original form here. So Kurdish names back to Kurdish names, and Arabic name back to Arabic names. Qasim Jirdu, for example, Kuju, Jilan, Khalid Haji. So all of these names, if the name is in Kurdish, I keep it in Kurdish. Suzanne and Delvin right here. And if the name is in Arabic, I kept it in Arabic. And also I received another form from Kurdish historian Dawood Murad Khatari, who worked on the Yazidi genocide. And he also wrote in Arabic. So I repatriated back these names to Kurdish names. For example, any of Kitche in here, it's Ayad Dawood Kitche. It should be Chi, not G. So I repatriated their original names again into, and I included this list in my project as well. And outcome this installation that, as you see here behind me as well, of these light boxes. It consists of 41 pieces, and it's still more of these fingerprints and the video as well in this installation piece. And also this another reference to that election after the Iraqi invasion. And also, at the first, I wanted to use the individuals who voted for Iraq war. These individuals were politicians, lawmakers, and the United States say like congressmen who voted for Iraq war, but I couldn't find them, so I used my own fingerprints. So these are generic online, or these are just from my own fingerprints, which I copyrighted and used them. So it replicates a crime scene. There is a crime scenes against these individuals. When you looked at into these images, that's what I wanted to show, and repatriating back the names into their original names. Thank you. I think I will stop here. Like I could speak more.
Thank you very much, Şener. Question two for dear Khayal Khartal. What led you to found the New York Kurdish Cultural Center? Looking back from the night, the New York Kurdish Film Festival, what was your core aim? In your conversation, you mentioned how contemporary artists who came to the United States often search for a space or an institution that can represent them. How does the NYKCC respond to those needs?
Hello, everyone. Şener, thank you for inviting me to this important panel discussion, and many thanks to the Zahra Institute for hosting us. If you don't mind, I'd like to begin by sharing a core belief that guided me in my work. Belief in standing in solidarity with the disfranchised, the oppressed, and the colonized, in the hope of building a better world where everyone can live with dignity and equality. Interestingly, though, perhaps not surprisingly, I had rarely applied this belief to the Kurdish context. The Kurdish struggle was often seen as something different from that of other colonized people. And I remember our conversation with Engin years ago. He asked me a similar question, and I gave him exact answer. I said, Kurdish question is different, right? But as my perspective evolved, I began to see the Kurdish experience at the heart of this belief. Kurds are the largest nation in the world without a state, enduring centuries of systematic uprooting, assimilation, cultural erasure from their homeland, where they lived for thousands of years. Recognizing the Kurdish question in this broader context also brought me to an individual responsibility to create and protect spaces where Kurdish art, cinema, and voices can be collectively heard. In the West, Kurds are almost always portrayed in a single dimension, and that is being fighter. The media tends to highlight Kurdish bravery, especially Kurdish women leading armies, but rarely portrays Kurds as artists, thinkers, musicians, or simply as human beings living complex lives. This narrow narrative, combined with my personal journey to understand Kurdish identity as part of a global struggle against colonization, led me to ask, what space do we have here in New York to present Kurds in our full humanity? As singers, as filmmakers, women, LGBTQ+ individuals, as people? The answer was simple. As many of those who live in New York, there was none, and there is none. Each time we introduce ourselves as Kurds in the US, and I'm pretty sure those who live in Europe have similar experiences, we have often have to draw a mental map of Middle East, name the colonizing states, just to give a sense of who we are and where we come from. Sadly, even today, there isn't a single physical space in all New York carrying name Kurdistan or Kurds, not cafe, not cultural centers. There is simply no space. 9 years ago, I consciously began to look at the Kurdish question through what I call nationalist lenses, not as an exclusionary vision, but as a necessary step forward, a more universal understanding of our shared humanity. With that vision, and with the support of many friends who believe in the power of art, I founded the New York Kurdish Film and Cultural Festival. That was the original name. Since then, the festival has grown from a grassroots initiative into a nonprofit organization called New York Kurdish Cultural Center. As an umbrella hosting organization, many activities, including the film festival, which many of you know more than other activities, 9 years in a row. From the beginning, from the beginning, our goal has been to create a safe and inclusive space where Kurds from all parts of Kurdistan, of all beliefs, identities, and backgrounds can come together, proudly identify as Kurds, and share their voices with the world. Through this work, the NYKFF has become an important platform in the ongoing process of decolonizing Kurdish identity, encouraging pride, inclusivity, and self-representation within Kurdish society and belief. And I'd like to share our website if I still have time. Do I have time? Okay. Thank you. And here it is. So this is the opening night, opening ceremony when we stand up to sing along Kurdish national anthem. I think you can have different takes on this photo, but to me, it's a photo reflecting of Kurdish pride and freedom and emotions that driven them to sing along. I think except South Kurdistan, nowhere else is such experience possible, right? In a public spheres, in collectively singing Kurdish national anthem with Kurdish flags around. I'd like to end my presentation, and our website is nykff.org if you like to share, check it out later on. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Khayar. My question for the Engin Sustam. I have many questions for you. You have written and continue to write about the Kurdish contemporary art practices beyond your curatorial work. You have also thought deeply about the state of Kurdish art. Do you think there is such a thing as a distinctly Kurdish contemporary art? Please.
So I think one question is enough, Şener. I suppose, I don't know. That's a big question and a pretty broad answer. I will try give you, but beside that, I have a time to speak softly for your question. Is a big question, very big question, and I'd like to speak a long time. So thank you so much, firstly, everyone, for organizing this event, especially Şener Özmen and Zahra Institute and dear colleagues are here. I believe this is the first time we are discussing Kurdish contemporary art context at the global scale in a public forum, like in New York, Paris, London, Istanbul, and Kurdistan. So that's the question. I think you're also referring to our interview on Kurdish contemporary art for Studia Kurdica review of Paris Kurdish Institute. I am currently publishing as editor an issue of this review on the decolonial perspective of the Kurdish contemporary art space and art space, of course, all art space, like cinema, theater, and music. So I don't know exactly where to start curated practice or critique art or intellectual practice. Why did I work exactly on this topic? It's not a field where any works or deal much, and you know, since 95, I started with Kurdish literature to work exactly the trauma perception in the Kurdish literature around exactly the war practice in Kurdistan, Turkey. So then Kurdish cinema, of course. I arrived in Paris, 2002, worked with Hamid Bozaslan. Then I decided to work exactly on all them, also during my thesis, of course, on Kurdish contemporary art perspective and the colonial reflection in this was. So like me, who grew up in Istanbul, Kurdish Istanbul, I say all the time, I'm not exactly Kurdish of Dersim and Koçkiri, but Kurdish Istanbul, living neighborhood area referred to the Little Kurdistan in Istanbul, Arabiköy, Gazi, and etc. of Meydanı. I was interested in art. I was exactly able to Mimar Sinan Fine University. So I began engaging in artistic activity in Kurdish space in this time with, of course, like you know, with curator Professor Ali Akay, that interested exactly the Kurdish contemporary practice. So the Kurdish contemporary art give me exactly the topic to studies, Şener, on violence, on war, trauma experience in this area. And frankly, because literature didn't provide me with an answer, so I turned it to contemporary art perception. That's how I met Şener Özmen. That's a time at 95. To have books fire. You have the exhibition created by Alaka other curators. So I was seeing your installation with Halil Altındere entitled.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember the narrative of trauma in this installation that you are trying exactly meet in the scenes. So give me exactly the critique of Christian Boltanski. Say, memory stand the test of the time in artistic work. Excuse me. So That's a memory area in Kurdish spaces in all the Kurdistan. So the first young artist exhibition was created in Istanbul, not at the Kurdistan. So we have a short history of Kurdish contemporary art, but we have a great memory of this artistic space. I encountered the works and performance of artists such Şener, your works, and Jujun, the performance of woman period, and Halil Altındere. Everyone of this time, 90s, was working on politics, group, state violence, and PKK struggle, resistance, and other things. But anyone work exactly on Kurdish products creation space. So that is for me exactly the accumulating beneath the paving stone. It's a concept, it's a concept, created by Guy Debord in the movement 68. Art, I think, especially contemporary art, could respond to this. Sous la pavé, la plage, under the cobblestone, the beach. So, what's exactly under the cobblestone, the beach? We have a Kurdish trauma. We have a Kurdish neurotic time, the struggle, the resistance, and the assimilation of the colonial domination in this area. So we have anything to work exactly, and that the artists work exactly on this topic, this perception. Of course, also around their conceptualization into aesthetic relationship and the colonial approach, on maybe anti-colonial approach, I don't know exactly. So I described that like I remember in my thesis 15 years now, poisonous or snack tank, that exactly the Kurdish artist product in the Turkish white space. That's interesting because that's exactly what I felt. Resistance and creation was establishing a contemporary artistic memory at the dawn of the 19th. Of course, we have a memory like Turkish contemporary art. But this memory beginning, I think, in the diaspora, Istanbul or European diaspora. After, of course, we can talk the southern Kurdistan in 19th reflect exactly the artistic mediation in this area. So I think my thesis, Kurdish subaltern culture and contemporary art in Turkey, covered this claim. But now I have been working Şener and writing about all artistic tradition in all part of Kurdistan, exactly from 15 years now. So other ways, Şener Özmen, Fikret Atay, Halil Altındere, Erkan Özgen, Cengiz Tekin, Ahmet Öğüt, Hivaka, Jujins, Seremmehe, menstruation period, performed in TIAP during a youth event exhibition, and the exhibition of the Ali Akay in Diyarbakır 2003, deteriorization.
The force of language, yeah.
The force of language, exactly. Thank you so much. So this generation of the Kurdish contemporary artists, which I worked on, I remember their work much discussed with you, also with you, Şener. So I decided exactly to work in this space is not exactly visibility in this exactly global scale. the next generation, I think we can see exactly with the next generation like Ivaka, Mehtap Baydu, Berat Işık, Şevko Abbas, Şener Emin, and other Ateş Alper, Beyzar Aradini, Necbir Erkol, Luna Dervish, Nüven Barbari, Saria Nurcankaya, etc. There are the new generation quite exactly our time, this time, when we are exactly. So I remember, of course, Şener, you talk about exactly why you don't work on Kurdish contemporary art engine with Ali Akay. Of course, you talk that at 2000. I think so. Of course, this proposition is very great for me, and I returned exactly to work this topic. So now I think that's a long story, because I can say that the space, the Kurdish space, creative institutional activities on Kurdish contemporary art seriously establish and instrumentalize in all Kurdish space, particularly in southern Kurdistan now, Süleymaniye, Hevler, Duhok, in Turkey, in Kurdish diaspora, in Istanbul, Izmir, Ankara, and then in Kurdistan, Ahmet, Mardin, Van, Dersim, Batman, etc. And I can give you Rojava in Syria, try exactly to create exactly this topic. And of course, the Western diaspora, European and American diaspora, give exactly this possibility to work on Kurdish contemporary art. So we have the relation of the historicity, the memory, and creative mechanism of the Kurdish artistic form of struggle. In this was these areas, cities or region, I don't know, the Kurdistan, have become place of Kurdish creation perception today. I repeat, at the time, everyone was working on the PKK armed struggle and South Kurdistan space after the fall of the Saddam regime. And I think like today in Syria and in Rojava question, I think that was the level I am interested to work Kurdish subaltern popular culture and subculture in the Kurdish spaces, and including analysis on cinema, gastronomy, Kurdish Arabic culture, followed in 2012, published it in my books, and followed also by your books in Between World, Kurdish Contemporary Artists Writing by Erkan Özgen and you, Şener Özmen, from the Emoji Mundi Benetton collection. That's important because that's an archive. It's an archive. I think it was 2000, I went to Ahmet to chat with you and so on. Then I went many more times, met others, writer, artists, and so on. And then realized exactly my thesis. So, in fact, Hamid Bozaslan wanted me to work on the Kurdistan movement in the 70s. I didn't that. I did it exactly in Kurdish culture, reproduction and production. So I don't know. I will stop here. Maybe you have another question. We can continue to discuss another line. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Engin, for explanation.
Welcome.
I remember Martin van Brunessen said me in Diyarbakir. I joined us the Engin's thesis in Paris. Now I am here in Diyarbakir, and I talk to you. Yeah, it's so funny. And Gül, you co-edited 2 monographs published by Avesta Publishing House, one of the South Kurdish Başı Artist Walid City and the other on the North Kurdish, Bakur artist Mahmut Celayir. While it spoke openly about the questions of Kurdishness, why Celayir was more cautious? Why do you think that is?
Thank you, Şener. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Zahra Institute, for inviting me to this very important panel, let's say, because for me, this is the first time that I can find a place to discuss all these topics together with our colleagues and all the esteemed artists, scholars, writers together. Thank you. Thank you for this great event and idea. And thank you, Şener. Before I get started, Engin, I want to tell you that my motivation is also coming from Şener. He also pushed me to write on Kurdish contemporary art, my personal motivation coming from Şener. Thank you, Şener. Due to the time limit, I just, want to make it clear and make it short, let's say. I will, of course, answer your question, but before answering your question, I just want to briefly examine the journey of Avest art. By the way, it's a new way, but I want to summarize for our listeners. But before that, let me please briefly summarize my path, my journey, and how I think it would be better if I start with how my path and Avest art pursuit unfolded simultaneously, because that's the point. So my academic journey, as a brief summary, I can say, which started with my bachelor's at Hacettepe University in the Department of Political Science and Public Administration. And during my bachelor's studies, I focused on the Zazaki language, which is my mother tongue, by the way. And, oral history, the place of Dersim in Kurdish history, etc. I started from that point, let's say. I was always, interested in these topics academically. And I concentrated on especially Zazaki, by the way. So after my graduation from Hacettepe University, I delved further into the Zazaki language, Zazaki written culture, with a special focus on the Vate study group, maybe you are also familiar with. And my master's degree was at Bilgi University, Istanbul Bilgi University, and under the roof of the history program, by the way. And my main aim was to explore the idea of Vate, not only the journal, but the idea of Vate, that was what I call, and its role in the construction in the Kurdish identity. So after my graduation from Bilgi University, I continued to my PhD at Sabancı University, but it lasted for 3 years. And throughout, my PhD journey at Sabancı University started again in the Department of History. After 3 years, as I shifted my direction toward the arts, let's say, I left Sabancı University, and from that point on, I continued writing independently. So during this search for ways of writing on arts, for searching the Kurdish existence in contemporary arts, by the way, not an academic level, but rather on a personal level, I was interested in these topics, let's say. My path coincided with Avesta Publishing House, and we were discussing Kurdish art with Abdullah, who is the founder of Avesta, and he talked about the projects he was working on and asked me if I could take a role in publishing 2 monographs written by 2 writers, Fatih Tan and Mahsum Çiçek. It was the beginning. So the first monograph was on the Duhok-born artist Walid City, as you have just said, Şener. And the second one, which was almost ready by that time, by the way, which was not ready, focused on Mahmut Celayir, an artist from Bakur. So the projects were almost ready, by the way, when I was talking with Abdullah. But he was looking for, how can we edit in an appropriate way, let's say? How can we publish these 2 art books, these 2 monographs on different Kurdish artists? he was questioning. So in some, these projects were already in Avesta's hands and waiting to be edited. That was the story, the beginning of the story. And after a long discussion on the importance of, that is the point exactly, the importance of contributing to such an area in which, of course, Avesta plays a significant role for both Kurdish written culture and Kurdish existence in the contemporary art scene. So our motivation was clear. We said we should let's start from this point. And we decided to publish these two monographs together under the new book series, because the current book series was not, appropriate for these two books. And I suggest the name Avesta Art. That's the story of our name. I was the founder of the name, let's say. And yeah, the idea of writing a detailed examination of these two esteemed Kurdish artists, Kurdish painters, came from the authors, came from Fatih and Mahsum. And Abdullah and I agreed on the idea. So despite the challenges, by the way, of language and expression by the authors, we found their works worth examining, let's say, as they have consistently written about Kurdish artists across different art platforms for many years. But, their writings, both Fatih's and Mahsum's writings, articles, were, of course, fragmented. They, wrote a lot on different Kurdish artists in different art platforms, mostly in Turkish, by the way. And, this was something few others, have done with such persistence and care. This was the core of the work. Fatih and Mahsum was persistent about writing on Kurdish artists. So we care about it, let's say. And Şener also is the part of this job, because we then discussed the idea with Şener. He is also co-editor of this book series, and began the book series immediately. So, as you may know, or you all know, despite scarce resources, everyone did their best to publish these first monographs for Avesta. And that was the beginning of this story. For the book series, we are currently working on Behram Hacoz's monograph, by the way, which will hopefully be ready soon, within this year, hopefully. By the way, the artist monographs are not only source for the book series, Avesta Art book series. We also discussed with Şener that how can we further this books, let's say. And in the near future, we plan to publish some translations from English to Kurdish and edited volumes discussing the existence of Kurds in the contemporary art scene, which is, I think, really, which there's a need for, the written area, maybe academic area. We had to, create some edited volumes to discuss this very important topic. And regarding your question, by the way, let me come to the artist that we chose. Your observation seems quite accurate, you're right. Indeed, while it spoke more openly about questions of Kurdishness compared to Celal, you're right. But to me, there's no single answer to this question, because there are not only different Kurdishnesses among Kurds, as far as I observe, especially related to, the part of the Kurdistan, but also different modes and forms of expression. That's the point, I think. So, although Celal is less outspoken about his Kurdishness compared to Walid City, but everyone is, I think you also know it, everyone is aware of his identity, in the art scene, and his artistic aspiration rooted on the mountains of Kurdistan. His aspiration is coming from Kurdistan, and everyone knows that. Maybe not as much as outspoken compared to Walid City, but everyone knows how his motivation is coming. That was the point. And this can be another answer. I don't know. I just want to, speak on it loudly. We can keep in mind that Celair practices art during the 1970s. So it's really early for the Kurdish contemporary art. It's an early period. And, under the strict political atmosphere, of course, I know every period is really strict for the Kurds in Turkey, especially. But, 70s, the atmosphere, the political atmosphere in 70s can be different. That can be one of the answers to your question. And, compared to the 2000s, by the way, the period may be more fragile. I'm speculating it. I didn't ask Celair, by the way. Just, these are my answers, my potential answers, let's say. So on the other hand, starting from his early career, he spent a lot of time in Germany, by the way. That can be another answer. I don't know, maybe there can be a kind of relation, living in Germany and, spending his time in Germany. I don't know. That can be another answer. And by the way, we should also keep in mind that Walid City was also active in the art world around the same period as Celair. So they were contemporary. Yet these two recognized artists have been walking their own paths. This is the quick answer, let's say, which is quite natural, considering the fragmented Kurdish society across the world. So they had their own characteristics, and still it would be unfair to me to claim that Celair is not open about Kurdishness. It would be unfair. Let's do not say that. But the path was different, let's say. So our focus is not, I should underline this. Our focus as Avestart is not on how or to what degree, to what extent artists articulate, state their Kurdishness in their artistic production or expression. It's not our job. Of course, needless to say, by the way, this excludes any discourse grounded in denial or hatred of identity. I exclude these two. But on the other hand, we are not interested in how they articulate their Kurdishness in the artistic production. That's not our business. So our priority is to highlight artists who seek to position themselves as Kurds within the contemporary art world, and who, in one way or another, doesn't matter, represent the diversity of Kurdish society. That is the main point for Avestart. That is what we care about, let's say. So far, we have included artists from Bashur Bakur, Rojava, and hopefully next will be Roshalat. Now, if I have enough time, I also want to mention another important point, because the idea of, we have an idea of transforming Avestart into an online art platform. This is something new, a new news. This idea, which was deeply I felt, by the way, was born out of the fact that writers who want to write about Kurdish art, or the Kurdish existence in the contemporary art scene, encounter undeniable, I think, and very strict filters imposed by the founders or owners or writers of the so-called esteemed art platforms, especially in Bakur. That's the case. That was the point. That was the problem for us. It was, by the way, valid for Fatih and Mahsum as well. They were written on Kurdish artists, but for many of the platforms, they could not write even the word of Kurd. So basically they said, okay, you can write on a Kurdish artist, talk about Şener's art, but without talking about his Kurdish identity. That was the case. And that was the problem for us. Yeah. So
Thank you.
to me, this is the hidden rule of the arts world in Bakur, by the way. And if one wants to write about Kurds or Kurdish artists, they should avoid mentioning Kurdishness. Or, of course, needless to say, Kurdistan. You cannot use that evil word Kurdistan, of course, for the Turkish art platforms. So without these key concepts, it's impossible to write on Kurdish artists or Kurdish art. So on the other hand, in the English-speaking world, that's also another point. There's no platform to explore what Kurdish art looks like. So that's how we, concluded our discussion and decided to establish Avestart as an online art platform, which will be launched hopefully in December. We haven't launched it yet. And just some final words. I just want to add this point as well. This is my observation as far as I observe. What makes something visible in Kurdish literature, academia, music, or any other fields, arts, in my view, has always been individual effort and persistence. That is the key word. Individual persistence and effort, individual effort. So whenever someone keeps working steadily on a subject, it eventually finds its place, hopefully, let's say. And that was basically the story of encountering these individual efforts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gül. Thank you very much. I remember Mahmut Celayir had an interview with Ayşegül Sönmez, the art critic of Turkish art critic, in Radical newspaper, in which he said, "I am not PKK guerrilla. If I were, I would be in the mountain." Yeah, I remember that. Okay, we have time, Şener, for question 2.
Maybe one more question, perhaps.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Hüner, again. I'd also like to talk about your installation, Blood Washing, especially since the 2000s, women artists from the northern Kurdistan have produced works dealing with their own bodies. And this approach remains very much alive today. Can you tell us more about the materials you used, the illuminated panels, the conceptual and historical background of these U-turn drawings, which appear as if they were drawn in blood?
I'd like to share my screen again so that you, audience, see what you are referring to, blood washing. This is the installation. Do you guys see it? Yeah. Yes. So this is a subject. When we talk about Kurdish art in general, whether it's visual art, theater, cinema, at some point we have to discuss about honor killing, and it has been discussed heavily, and it's a heavy subject. When it comes to Kurdish artists in general, we are not shying away from the heavy subjects, and which is good, in my opinion. For the blood washing project, this is a personal narrative. This is not a statement. I'm not telling a statement or trying to be a voice for other genders. This is a personal statement because in my teenagerhood, I was close to be a victim of this tradition. I had a taboo relationship with my neighbor, and her brother found us. This was probably in 2011, I would say 2010 or 11, between those 2 years. Back, flash forward, in United States, I ran away and escaped for that incident. In 2017, I was doing a printmaking class, and I put a paper on a glass panel and peeled it. It looked like blood veins, and that made me think of creating this project, that event. This is symbolic. I'm in this project. I'm working on symbolic visual elements. There are many visual elements that I try to cover in this project, religious, cultural, and so on. And some of it my own memory of my childhood. I had seen somebody who I knew to show their proof of virginity on a cloth, white cloth, which led to this image you'd see here. And this is at the end of the project. So it's this one. And if you see the installation, it's at the end. So if you read from the left top side of your screen, and you'd see the uterus is deforming through different abstractions all the way to that image. Now, this project was essentially, I wanted to use parchment to cure parchment and make it, then print this concept on it. But I couldn't. So the material that I used, this is a latex. So liquid latex, I poured it on polyethylene, and it has other symbols. Latex is used in condoms. That was and it's plastic that replicate the skin, and that's what I use this. It's not blood. This is oil painting, and in the video I used acrylic. So there are two different materials in the video where I use the image of fingerprint again. These are two videos playing on the same time on the opposite side of the installation. One video, it's a slow movement, just emphasizing on fingerprinting. And I'm using these symbols on how these two medias are competing in the same room, where one side is representing woman, and the other side is representing man, which is me. The camera is facing upward, and I am working on the fingerprint, which suggests this objectification. This is a conversation between these genders in this space. It's a power dynamic. That's what I wanted to work on. And these elements repeat here as well. There are elements of the death, visually looking at it. Religiosity here, I wanted to draw like Jesus on the cross, but kind of, but it's still the uterus. I'm trying to be more provocative. Also, the reason why I did it is that it's not erotic. It is that's why I wanted to use this element because and in the later conversations, when it comes to productive right and so on, that's why I use this project. And also when we talk about honor killing, we often dismiss that it's a societal issue. It's not. It's not just women that suffer from it. There are men who would be suffering or be the victim of this tradition just as much as women. But of course, women would be suffering from it disproportionately for sure. And so this is a conversation between two sides, man and woman in this space. And the woman, it's on the ground, heavy source of light, and the man representing in the video, it's a light, it's up high, it's fading, and so on. So it's a visual symbols that I worked on in this project, and a personal narrative or suffering or almost being a victim of this tradition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Şener. Hayal?
Şener, I
Sorry.
think we need to move on to the audience Q&A due to the time.
Okay. Can I?
You,
Yes.
if you'd like to start the question, go.
Yes,
Feel
thank
free to,
you.
Şener.
Thank you. I believe we share the same view that such independent film festivals play an important role, not only in the development of national cinema, but also in production experimental video. Yet we continue to struggle with issues of institutionalization, and artists are almost entirely on their own. What are your thoughts on this?
Thank you, Şener. Such a great deal I learned so far from all panelists. Thank you so much. And one thing particularly took my attention, including myself, everyone talked at least one point of their speech about space, right? Importance of space. So as we experience increasingly in virtual spaces, I still believe in the power of physical spaces as still holds the power in binding, identifying, connecting, and exchanging, especially for Kurds, allowing Kurdish individuals and communities, Kurdish communities, to find their places in society. For artists who identify as Kurds, whether or not their work directly engages with the Kurdish question, space itself is transformative and translational. But free and independent spaces have long been absent for Kurds, not because their art, but because of their identity, as Gül and Engin and you mentioned as well. Their individuality is rarely represented in artistic context, and often they lack access to spaces where they can shape, identify, and transform as artists. In Kurdistan, such spaces are largely absent, except for limited initiatives in autonomous part of South Kurdistan and some in Diaspora in Istanbul and other initiatives as Vata Institute and Avesta is playing largely. In the US, they also relatively unfortunately new and inaccessible. Only on rare occasions through either higher education or personal network, Kurdish artists able to exhibit their work. New York, known as the heart of the art world, carries immense cultural weight, but remains highly unaffordable and exclusionary, especially for Kurdish artists. So we began collaborating with various institutions, including Arte East, to co-sponsor and co-host Kurdish artists and their work, but not directly through us yet. Today, most Kurdish artists still rely on, unfortunately, personal networks, often presenting their work without Kurdish names or identity. Those who make it to New York and persist in asserting Kurdishness often reach out to us through our website, book club, cinema club, or through American institutions, as I mentioned. And those are interestingly why coming from different, wider perspective of art, for instance, from tambour player to painter to filmmaker to installationist, it's just overwhelmingly rich. In New York, another beauty of, I think, living in New York is to seeing Kurds from all four parts and from diaspora parts of Kurdistan, not only exhibiting their work, but also allowing their space to become a safer zone for Kurds, all Kurds from all parts of Kurdistan, to come and celebrate art as Kurd, right? Not someone from either any side of Kurdistan, but simply as Kurds. So that's the beauty. Downside is, again, even us as Kurdish Cultural Center, we do not have our own space. We rent venues or we collaborate with organizations such as, again, either eFlux, Rosa Luxemburg Stiftung Institute, Goethe time to time, to let our artists, our authors, our painters to be able to speak up through their artwork. I'd like to end here. It seems like we don't have much time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we have some questions already here in the chat box. If we can move with that.
Okay.
Let's see. It looks like Farad has a question for Engin and Şener regarding Kurdish contemporary artists and where, perhaps where do you stand on colonialism? It's a very broad question, and I'm not sure who the subject of this question is. So if you can take a look there by Farad. He has a question for you, Şener and Engin,
yes.
about Kurdish contemporary artists and their stance on colonialism.
Bakabildin mi Gül soruya?
Yes.
Can I see the question exactly? I don't see.
It's in the chat box, Engin.
Chat box? Where
Yeah.
is the, okay, racial, okay, contemporary art can be challenging.
It's the one above that,
Not,
Engin.
not
Yeah,
that
yeah.
one, Engin, the other one.
No, there's not that.
It says, I want to ask Engin and Şener, Kurdish contemporary artists, where do stand on colonialism? So they are asking where Kurdish contemporary artists take on colonialism.
Engin?
Yeah, that's a great question.
It's a deep question.
So yeah, be a quick question. Of course, we haven't time for. So we must be said, Hayal, also that this is an artistic practice in a stateless society. So even if contemporary Kurdish art is gaining a visibility in the global art world by the wars, of course, by the wars of biennial and diasporic biennial and other practice like cultural center, etc. In Western diaspora, but archived also at the Tet Modern, George Pompidou, Art Basel, I don't know, documenting Kassel, Istanbul Biennale. But this problem is, I think, after all, you are invited to the Venice Biennale, not as Kurdistan artist or Kurdish artist, but as Iraq, and Turkey, Iranian, I don't know, other territory, because Kurds have no state, no institution, no status, or no exactly state or institutional support. That's normal. I understand exactly the reaction of the Mahmoud Jelayir. Then, of course, you have to look as institutionalization of ours took shape in Sudan, Kurdistan. That's a laboratory for me now, and Rojava also for the future, of course. Contemporary art practice position exactly against the colonial perception, the colonial reflection in this area by the iconic or maybe ironic conceptualization, like the work of Şener Özmen, the work of Fatoş İrven, another artist. You have many artists like Şener Özmen here, work exactly on democracy, using the different ritual, the different perception and tradition in the Kurdistan, Iraq, and or Roshelat. That is, I'm not sure. That's a question when I think the Kurdish artists must be exactly identify their practice now. That's the time now. We can exactly identity or practice. Like I am Kurdish art critics and Kurdish intellectual, I don't know other things. The Kurdish artists, depending, of course, some institutional practice in Turkey, like in Iran, like maybe in Diaspora. We have many artists living in Diaspora, speaking exactly Kurdish American artists, Kurdish French artists, Kurdish German artists, etc. We have many complex problems. This was because the colonization is not exactly the was of the problem or problematic of the Kurdish artists, but by the symbolic and semiotic intervention that they practice in their works. I'm not sure
thank you, Mamusta.
exactly.
That's a very complicated and big question.
Yeah, that's a complicated with my English also.
Hold on. I'm sorry, Şener. I see Mamusta Bukhenska has a question there.
Because I would like to just say that just 1 minute. The topic that I study since my thesis, we call in Kurdish bevalati. On bevalati describe exactly the meaning of the Kurdish art memory, anti-colonial, decolonial memory. Bevalat, because bevalat is meaning between a hamlet or a stated society practice. In Kurdish, we are talking about artistic practice that have a hamlet, but no institutional state representation in the global scope. That is very important that I would like to say, yeah.
All right, thank you, Mamusta. And Dr. Bukhenska.
Thank you all for these fascinating insights. I really learned a lot, and I'm so grateful. I don't have a question. I wanted to draw your attention to one interesting phenomena that you may never heard about, but I think it's worthy to mention it here. And this is Kurdish art in my country. Through a range of exhibitions that happened starting from 2003 and were organized by Mr. Ziad Rauf, who is actually the representative of the Iraqi Kurdistan government in Poland, in Krakow, and who is very active and have been very active to promote Kurdish art and especially painting. And the first exhibition, all main exhibitions took place in main Polish institutions and were under the banner of Kurdish art. And this is the catalogue of the first one that took place in February 2003. Kurdish contemporary art in Europe, and represented Kurdish art from 3 parts of Kurdistan, but from the diaspora. Other huge book that was published 2 years ago, the catalogue of the exhibition in another city, not in Krakow, Kurdistan Images of Existence, and many other exhibition of individual artists like Bahram Hajru, also accompanied by interesting publications. And currently we have another huge exhibition representing Kurdish art here in Krakow, organized by Ziad Rauf. And it is true that it represents mainly Bashuri arts because this is the most accessible thing to him. But I think that from the perspective of Poland, in the Middle East, there is only Kurdistan and Kurdish art, because there are no other migrant cultures that would be represented this way in Poland. And I think it is very interesting phenomena, and it is first through thanks to his activities in this field, but also because Poland and Polish art had this experience of statelessness and resistance, and this art very much resonates with what Polish audience know. So if we talk about decolonization of art and this Kurdish topic, I would also suggest we look not through the centers when we think about some centers of art in the Western world, but also to look around and think where there are some potential for these art worlds to meet and resonate with each other, because I think here it is the space when it opens up and gives some new possibilities. And I'm currently thinking to do something about it, to write something about it, because really I think also when listening you today that this is special phenomena here. Thank you very much. And really, I think this was a great panel, and I will for sure re-listen to it and will share it with my students.
Dr. Bochenska, would you please also share a link for these exhibitions that you mentioned?
I will, but the problem with them is that many information is in Polish. And this is also the reason why you may not know it, because it doesn't live in this international space. It lives here in Poland. Some of these exhibitions, they gained the awards from Polish ministry, or because they were acknowledged, but it is here. On the margins of this European art life, but still, I think it's important.
The response, and let's see here, if I may interject.
There's one question from Merve Kurt.
Oh,
yeah.
So Merve, actually before that, we have other questions. Rachel had a question here about contemporary art. That question was right after Franz. Contemporary art can be challenging, even distasteful to some viewers. Can you say something about audience reactions to your works, especially on the part of diaspora audience who may want Kurdish artists to represent an idealized, uncomplicated view of their art origins?
I assume that's probably for me.
Rachel, please. You're there. Is that for Huner?
Yeah. Yes. in terms of distasteful and challenging, yes, contemporary art could be distasteful and challenging, but that's also inviting in more for conversation and having the space for looking at subject in different views. We artists tend to make art or think about subject in many four-dimensional or many ways to create the artwork. As a Kurdish artist, we deal with multi-layered colonialism. It's not just a colonialism itself. We deal in many suppressions from societal, religious to political to global suppression. Especially in Kurds, we are forced to speak in our occupiers' language in order to explain ourselves. We write in our occupiers' language to write about our own art, our own suffering. So what that told us, we are dealing with multi-layered issues here, not just it's a one view of thinking. So when it comes to the art and contemporary art, especially, I don't think we should shy away from the subject or the way that we express. If you are familiar with contemporary art globally, there are the artists try to shock people to bring into the spaces, but in my case, the reality is shocking for me. That's why my reality and my living experience is the art. I don't have to bring in audience into a space and try to shock them and creating these images that make them shock, because the reality is shocking. I just have to say what's happening to me in terms of suppression, in terms of division, in terms of not being able to speak my language and express myself the way that I want to. That's why I am creating art in this form. Thank you.
Şener, before I move on to the next question, I have my own question here. I, of course, had the opportunity to meet with you earlier this summer, you and your family. I got to see your work, and whenever I mention your work, Şener, with other Kurds, they always assume that I'm talking about a woman artist. If your name Şener, I mean, is it a pseudonym? If so, is there a particular significance to the name?
No, that's my real name, Şener. It means art, and it's usually it's for male in the south.
Okay, that's good to know.
It's not planned. When my parents named me, they did not know anything about art, so
that's a good start.
Maybe if my name was not Şener, I wouldn't have been an artist. I don't know.
All right, let's see. I think the next question here, thank you so much, Şener, is by Autumn. And Autumn written, thank you all for your insights. It seems self-evident that there is, in fact, contemporary Kurdish art. Why is this a good or useful question for scholars? How should we use this to frame as a framework in our research?
Because this issue is too important for Kurdish studies. This is my opinion. Thank you. Engin?
Engin, you are muted right now. If you'd like to help answer that question in terms of how do we use this as a framework for research.
Why I studies exactly on Kurdish artistic space, I don't know exactly what it's interesting to work exactly for not exactly for Kurdish studies, but for creating the new words of the aesthetic relation in this artistic era at the global scale. That's important for me to point it exactly that. I don't exactly in Kurdish. For Kurdish studies, that's a Kurdish studies, of course. But I study normally. The topic is very important, and that topic position exactly against the dominant language, the war and the violence, the state violence, and again Kurds, of course, and that is that's a very important line. Create exactly the memory of Kurdish memory for me. That's important because that guy I work exactly. Excuse me. I give the French language. I work exactly on this space because this space is very, very significant for some critics for me. For example, look at the work of all artists. They are based on concept. That's a concept of science such as trauma, violence, drought, and anxiety. His work is very important for artists. If I can see wrote that modern of Şener Özmen and Erkan Özgen not exactly give us the meaning, the critic of artistic era. There criticizes also the colonial application by this museum, famous museum like that modern, and that's a pathological memory for me to work exactly that the Kurds have all the time during 19 and 20 1920. So I know I not exactly I thanks it is depending of course some Kurdish artists use exactly the different mediation for art mobility because that's important, like a Kurdish academy, like a Kurdish scholarship. That's important for us, and the Kurdish artistic space is very important for creating exactly the memory, the history of this space. And we have another question I see.
Thank you, Professor. One
of the question that on generation. We have a fourth generation, not exactly two generation. I haven't time to speak that out of it. In that Şener, before Şener, excuse me, Valitsti, Timur Çelik, and Russia, we are a fourth generation, maybe Şener Özmen, Jujun, Halil Altındere, and Ahmet Öğüt, etc. That's the second generation. And we have, of course, a third generation and fourth generation also arrival is coming, is now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Professor. The next question here is by Merv Kurt. Could the use of the term resistance in relation to the Kurds risk reinforcing narratives of victimhood or Orientalist representations rather than capturing their broader forms of agency and epistemic creativity? So this question is specifically for Ngin, but Merv is open to hearing from other participants as well.
So I don't know. Yeah, of course, we have many. Can you translate maybe my speech in Turkish? I would like to speak easily in Turkish. Do you have a possibility to translate that?
Of course, but before I started, let me note that I'm not that much professional. So if I make any mistakes, sorry for the translation. I will do my best.
We will try translate
Please.
together, okay? It's okay for you, Gül?
Yeah, for sure.
So, donc, concerning this question, on victimization and the colonial reflex and other things. Yani çağdaş sanatın içinde mağduriyet söylemi 1990'ların başından 2000'lerin başına kadar biraz kullanıldı, evet, yani bir mağduriyet söylemi vardı. Ama ben bunun bir iç oryantalizm ya da oryantalizm meselesi olduğunu düşünmüyorum. Yani bu savaşta yaşanılan deneyimin bir sonucu olarak ortaya çıkan bir durum gibi geliyor ya da baskının yarattığı bir sonuçmuş gibi geliyor bana.
Can I translate it?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think, I think it's the victimhood thing that was used. Yes, I know, but I didn't use it intentionally for, referring to, or sound as, something Orientalist. But I think it's a result of the war, that the war was ongoing. It was the result of the war.
Bir şey ekleyebilir miyim?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Sanırım mağduriyet söylemi bize Avrupa'dan geçen bir söylem oldu. Ve 90'larda, yani sorunun hangi 90'lar diyor. 90'lar da bir sanat yok bu arada. Bir Kürt sanatı yok. Çok kusura bakmasınlar. Öyle bir şeyden bahsedemiyoruz. 2000'lerle başlayan yani bu yanlış bir tarihleme. 2000'lerle başlayan bir mağduriyet meselesi olabilir ama bunu sanatçı göstermek zorundayız. Çünkü bizi keşfeden Türkiye değil, bizi keşfeden Avrupa oldu. Ve Avrupa mağduriyeti besleyen bir ülke oldu. Küratörler o mağduriyeti isteyen ve talep eden bir şey oldu. Bunu söyleyebilirsiniz. Evet.
Well, we cannot talk about, or we cannot describe a Kurdish contemporary art during 1990s,
Yes.
because the Kurdish contemporary art started with the beginning of 2000s, and for this beginning, for 2000s, the European, the Western side were interested in Kurdish contemporary art, and this victimhood term, this terminology was coming from the Western side because they were more, concentrating, more focusing in the Kurdish contemporary art.
Bence burada bir şey unutuluyor. Yani Şener'e yani eleştirel yaklaşarak gideceğim bu sefer. Şimdi 90'lardaki konsept ile 2000'lerdeki konsept elbette ki birbirinden farklı. Yani şey çok doğru. Avrupa mağduriyet söylemini destekliyordu. Çünkü 90'lardaki Berlin Duvarı'nın yıkılmasından sonra dünyada otantisite çok önemli olmaya başlamıştı sanat dünyasında. Yani işte Paris'te özellikle büyücüler üzerinden yapılan sergiler, George Pompidou'da vesaire. Aynı şey de Kürdistan'da da geçerliydi. 1990'larda Güney Kürdistan'daki özgürleşme pratiği, 1990'larda Türkiye Kürdistan'ındaki direniş pratiği, bunların hepsi aynı zamanda mağduriyet söylemini tabii ki beraberinde getirdi. Ve sanatçılar bunu kullandılar. Bunu bayağı sattılar da tabii 1990'ların ortalarında ve 2000'lerde de öyle. Ama yani hani bir hafıza oluşturdukları kesin hani bununla birlikte. Yani bütün eserlerde bir mağduriyet söylemi yok yani. Sadece bazı sanatçılar bunu kullanmak zorunda kaldılar. Çünkü otantisite acayip şey yapıyordu, iş yapıyordu sanat ortamında. Ve Avrupalı küratörlerin heyecanlandırıyordu. Ve İstanbullu küratörleri de heyecanlandırıyordu. Bu beyazlık söylemi üzerinden. Ama yani bu şey değildi. Yani orada şunu unutmamak lazım. Ezilenlerin pedagojisi bu mağduriyet söyleminin içinde eriyerek ilerleyen bir şey. Yani tamamen mağduriyet orayı belirleyen bir şey değil.
Aklımda kalanları söyleyeceğim. Engin is also agreed on Şener, but added more, another layer to his claim and said during the 1990s, there was not only victimhood, in the minds of the Europeans, but also authenticity was the case, right, Engin?
Yeah, exactly that.
So it was also important, but both in Bakur and Başur, the artists were also more dealing with this victimhood. So as far as I understand correctly, okay.
Yeah. That's...
I would like to...
sorry, Hüner. Not just
you can go.
Not just artists. The writers, the Kurdish writers, use this topic. Yeah.
All actors.
I would like to say
Basic
something
Turkish.
negative about it, if that's okay. Just personal anecdote. I began learning, or I began studying art in the Western view. I studied Western classic art, for example, in Iraq, for example. Not until I was in United States did I went back and thought about the richness of the East and the visual elements of the East, that I wanted to make art that replicates that. I was influenced by abstract art. I was influenced by, for example, the minimalism and so on, and performance art, conceptual art, and so on from the West. But that is the only, like, if we say that when you say that the form of agency and how we make art, and where we could not be embarking into the victimhood and Orientalism idea, it was tasteless at some point when I could find my people or me being suppressed and making art, abstract art. It was detached from the reality. A Kurdish artist who is suppressed and making abstract art was detached from reality. It's a whitewashing of the problem. We need to head on what we are going through. At the time when I was learning art, I was suppressing my own belief and my own identity, not talking about these subjects in my artwork, and just working on abstract art, for example. It was tasteless. I got to see all these, what in the questions it's called the creativity spaces or the creativity areas in the West. I think it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't motivate me. I am not moved by it as much. But when I see a Kurdish artist, for example, HYK, dealing with so many layers of meaning in his artwork, then I am moved by it. And I think we should give credit to that element, that Kurdish artists that are working on so many layers of meaning in their artwork. In case of HYK,
May
for
I
example.
add something also?
Yes.
Well, I think when the topic comes to Kurdish artists, of course, the artists, when they are in the producing process, let's say, when they are creating something, of course they are looking at, concentrating on what he or she experienced and what's in his or her mind. So it can be history, it can be oral tradition, it can be Kurdish society, it can be material culture of his or her own society. This is the creative process. But for the how can I say, other art subjects that can promote the Kurdish artists, for Bakur, it was the Istanbul. So Istanbul was the center. And for these curators, writers, academics, that was the point. I mean, because Kurds were fashionable, political fashion. So that was the issue. Their interests were, I think, coming from the political motivation, because Kurds were, the topic, the hot topic. And, Ali the interest of Ali Akay, I don't know, you worked with all of them, Şener. So their interest also, I think, was about that trend, that fashion. But for now, in Bakur, nobody talks about Kurdish artists right now. So that is also, I think, one of the important points that we have to underline, because because of the absence of the institutions, we have to, look at for instance, for Bakur, we have to look at Istanbul, because this is the center of art. Hopefully now it will change. Diyarbakır maybe can. Diyarbakır and Mardin, so other Kurdistan cities can make any change. But I don't know, it's, related to, not only related to artists themselves, but also all these different actors in the area.
Thank you, Yu. Earlier, Engin had addressed somewhat the topic on generation. So I'd like to move on to Özlem's question, Özlem Cengiz. Özlem, if you'd like to post your questions aloud, please turn on your audio.
Thank you. Actually, I want to remind something to Şener. Maybe he remembers that in 2009, which was in Turkey, was kind of Kurdish openness, political openness started, and 2010 also. And we had an exhibition in Berlin. So there was exhibition space, which was a radical curator, Rene Block. But unfortunately, we were supported financially by one of the Turkish rich family, VP Koç Foundation.
Yeah.
You remember that. So
Yeah.
maybe you don't know this inner information. I don't know. So, I mean, Rene Block came to us as a team meeting and said, okay, we're going to have an exhibition which was only Kurdish people, artists from Diyarbakır. And the title was Children of Diyarbakır.
Yes.
Which was great. We were, oh, wow. And including Şener Özmen, Erkan Özgen, so Cengiz Tekin, etc. And then maybe 1 week or 10 days later, he came again, another meeting. He said, oh, no, the title was discussed in Turkey, and which was not accepted because this family also obviously was actually making business with government, with Erdogan regime.
Yeah.
And then he said, okay, we changed the title. Instead of Children of Diyarbakır, we said we got a new title. It's called We Cannot Change the World in 90 Days, because the exhibition is 90 days. It's three months.
Yeah.
And then they involved. So go back to the beginning words, Şener. So actually, all this contemporary art world in Turkey was actually run by white people. And then they said, okay, we include white people also, kind of white people, you know, kind of white artists, like no Kurdishness, nothing. It's like Ali Kazma, Servet Koçyiğit. And we had this exhibition. It was a big success. But then I would like to ask you, and also maybe Engin, I don't know. So what do you think this colonization of Kurdish contemporary art starts even in our country first? Then how we actually survived, or you survived, and what do you think that the following days in Turkey? I don't know. And yeah, this is my question.
Thank you. Thank you, Özlem. Eğer kusuruma bakmazlarsa bir soruya yetersiz İngilizceden ötürü biraz Türkçe cevap vereceğim ve Gül'ün bana bu konuda yardımcı olmasını isteyeceğim. Çevirebileceği uzunlukta tutacağım ben sorunun yanıtını.
Ben özetleyeceğim, kusura bakma.
Evet. Thank you very much.
Gerekirse ben de çevireyim.
Sorun değil. Yok, sen çok çevirdin beni Özlem. Thank you very much Özlem. Sanırım 2000'lerde, 90 ve 2000'lerde ortaya çıkan sanatı, çağdaş sanatı, yani Diyarbakır'ı temel alırsak, galiba Ömer Koç ve Koç Vakfı dışında bir şey sayamayız. Yani Kürtler açısından düşündüğümüzde. Gül?
When we focusing on Kurds during 1990s and 2000s, we only Koç family, one of the richest family in Turkey, we can talk about. There's no such family in Turkey.
Bunu ben daha önce de yıllar önce bir pandemi sırasında katıldığım bir söyleşide söylemiştim. Biz kendi kendimizi yaratmadık. Bizi birileri yarattı zaten.
Before I claimed the same thing about this topic, I think, in my opinion, Şener said, we didn't create ourselves. Someone created us.
Buna bugün karşı çıkabilecek hiçbir sanatçı görmüyorum. Varsa Kuzey Kürdistan'da bunu lütfen şu an söylesinler. Nasıl ortaya çıktılar?
From Bakur, I don't think so any of the Kurdish artists can, reject my claim. If there's any, please speak now.
İstanbul'la bağımız yoksa, olmasaydı nerede olacaktık? Soru bu.
So without Istanbul, we even cannot be exist at all, in my opinion.
Bu yüzden hala aynı görüşteyim.
So today I still agree on the same opinion.
Yıllar önce İstanbul'da bir söyleşi yaptım ve söyleşinin başlığı merkeze akan sanatlar idi. Her şeyi İstanbul için yaptık.
For many years I did a speech on arts are flooding to the center, to Istanbul. So we did everything for Istanbul.
Bu yüzden Berlin'de Koç'un sponsor olduğu, desteklediği bütün sergilerde evet Kürt sanatçılar da vardı. Hala varlar.
Because of this, in Berlin, which was financially supported by Koç, there were lots of Kurdish artists, and still they are in.
Beni asıl şaşırtan şey şu: 2025 Kürdistan'da sanat üreten sanatçılar hala neden kurumlara ihtiyaç duyuyorlar üretmek için?
Yani Kürdistan'dan kastın hep bütün parçalar.
Evet, yani neden hala batıdaki kurumlara ihtiyaç duyuyorlar ve neden hala kendilerini böyle temsil ediyorlar? Bu yardımlarla temsil ediyorlar.
What is still surprising for me is the question that why all the artists from Kurdistan are still dependent on these Western sources, these Western institutions. Why, can't they find any other ways?
Yani başından beri Engin Sustan'ın söylediği şeylere çoğuna katılıyorum ve Kürt sanatçıları bir direniş içinden çıktılar. Ama bu direnişin anatomisiyle ilgili çok az şey biliyoruz.
I agreed on Engin's opinions. Kurdish artists were born from a resistance. Ne demiştin sonra?
Yani bunun anatomisiyle ilgili çok az şey biliyoruz.
We have a limited information on the anatomy of this resistance.
Başuru bilmiyoruz, Roşilat'ı bilmiyoruz, Rojava'yı bilmiyoruz.
We don't know something about Bashur, Roşilat and Rojava.
Yani sadece kendimizi Kuzey Kürdistan'daki çağdaş sanatı merkeze koyarak bir sanat tarihi okuması yapamayız.
So we cannot read and write art history centering the Bakur art. It's impossible. Şener, it's like a manifesto.
Yapamayız. Ben bunu düşünüyorum. Yani hani özleme yanıt vermek, biz özleme...
It's recorded. Evet. It's great.
Yes.
It's a historical event.
No, we talk to Özlem every day. No problem. I know Özlem.
I love you too, Şener.
Thank you very much. I will like too. Soru önemli çünkü agorafobyayı, yani Fulya Erdemci'nin, rahmetli Fulya Erdemci'nin Tanas'taki sergisini biliyor. Fulya Erdemci İstanbul Bienali küratörlerinden biriydi. Ve o zaman da Özlem sormuştu, Şener sen Bienal'de misin diye. Ama bu soru önemli değil. Yani şöyle düşünelim. Bienal'de olmak artık önemli değil. Mesele bu. Bir İstanbul Bienal'de olmak önemli değil. Bunu
Yani
geçtik.
bugünden mi bahsediyorsun?
Asla önemli değil. Bunu aştık. Bu bitti. Bunun şeyi geçti artık. Engin.
Before Engin,
Yeah.
Şener said, for today, there is no importance of biennials, of Istanbul biennials. But before that, it was important, right? I mean,
Yes.
for
Exactly. Yeah.
There is also something that's happening in all part of Kurdistan in its own regions. For example, there is a filtering that's happening. So whatever artists go through the filter being exhibited, so that means that whatever these governments in Turkey, in Iraq, and Iran don't like, then doesn't go through the filter, so they wouldn't be showing. Meanwhile, Kurdish artists in Europe are gaining the best, for example, UK and City and so on. Despite that, we don't have institutions in the south, in the Bakur, in Rojhelat, we don't have institutional support. The contemporary art needs institutional support, needs writing, need that all these fighters behind it to bring it to forward. We don't have all of that. And in fact, that we don't know each other's art in Bakur, in Bashur, and Rojhelat, and it's all individual efforts. We still are making amazing art despite all of that, and it deserves attention and research.
Thank you. I think we have time for just one more question here by Farad. In the interest of time, unfortunately, we have to end it with Farad's question. And Farad, you'd like to ask your question in Kurmanji? If so, please go ahead. Farad, are you there?
Farad, Fermo.
Oh, okay. He looks like he's has a technical issue there.
I think he wrote his question down.
Yeah, let's go with that one then. The question is for Bakur artists. I think Kurdish contemporary artists changed something at Bakur before I'm not quite sure I understand that question. They can do anything about art space afterwards. Contemporary artists are separate, so they did it the same time as with Istanbul.
Yeah.
What do you think about the situation now? I apologize.
I agree.
I'm having trouble reading the question.
I agree. Yes, but I am not the Bakur artist. I'm not. I'm not Bashur artist. I'm not East. I'm not Rojava. I'm just artist. I'm Kurd. This is my identity. But the Ferhat is right. Because yes, in the beginning of 19, the Kurdish artists working and together. They need the other artists and Kurdish artists. But
that was a collective time, Şener.
Yes, aynen öyle. But
90 years, we have in music, in theater, in cinema also. We work together. There is not exactly the question to answer. There's a question why we have a many problem in this space. Why we have a many problem in this space? Because that is a Kurdish station. It must say that it's a Kurdish station. We haven't institutional support like say Hunar. We haven't another things like state or I don't know the statue etc. Ben ne zaman kendimin Kürt ve entelektüel olduğunu söylediğim andan itibaren milliyetçi olarak nitelendiriliyorum. Bir anarşistim, yani Kürdistanlı bir anarşistim. Bunu söylediğim andan itibaren bir milliyetçi olarak adlandırıyorum.
When I
Bunu
claim,
çevirirsen yeah.
when I,
Yeah,
whenever I
I would like to continue exactly this line if you translate that, Gül. I'm
Tamam.
sorry.
Ben çevireyim mi çevirmeyeyim sen?
Yeah. You can now.
Whenever I say at the same time that I'm both Kurdish and intellectual, they blame me to be a nationalist, but not. I'm an anarchist.
So, yani demek istediğim şu, 1990'ların sonunda Ferhat'ın dediği gibi bir kolektif bir hafıza vardı, kolektif çalışma vardı. Çünkü bütün Kürt sanatçılar diğer Kürt sanatçılar gibi Diaspora'ya ve İstanbul'a bağımlıydı. Sadece Özlem Koç ailesi değildi, Sabancı ailesi, sonra Osman Kavala,
Eczacıbaşı.
yani bir sürü yani Eczacıbaşı, hepsi Kürt sanatçıları keşfediyordu. Rene Bloch gibi. Yani herkes
Hala.
çünkü
Engin hala.
hala Kürt sanatçıları keşfetme üzerine kuruluydu. Çünkü Kürt sanatçılar daha radikal şeyler söylüyordu, daha sert şeyler söylüyordu, kritikler yapıyorlardı. Bir de otantiklerdi yani. Bilmiyorduk yani. Yani onlar bilmiyordu. Biz değil, pardon. Yani bilinmiyorlardı.
Well, in the end of the 1990s, the Kurdish artists were more, tend to be together, act together collectively, let's say. But after Koç family, some other wealthy families in Bağkur, like Eczacıbaşı, you said, right? Sabancı's and Osman Kavala, by the way, searched for some Kurdish artists and they found interesting their authenticity.
So it must say that we haven't the cultural capital of Kurdish bourgeoisie. That's a great problem. We haven't another thanks part exactly by the Kurdish bourgeoisie living in diaspora, Western diaspora, because we haven't the cultural capital. That is a important topic of all artistic representation, all artistic products. That's important.
Engin, I'm not sure if the Turkish has the same capital, yani.
No,
they also don't have.
No. Güney Kürdistan'da da öyle. Bir kültürel kapitalimiz yok. Bu kültürel kapitalimiz olmadığı için uluslararası alanda Kürtlerin sanat faaliyetini destekleyecek bir alan yok. Bunu yaratacak bir alan yok. New York'ta bir sergi yapacaktık. Hayal biliyor. O sergiye yardım bulamadığımız için o sergi gerçekleşmedi.
Hatta 10 dakika oldu.
Tam 30 dakika. Canım. Benden daha iyi hesaplıyor.
Mikrofon açık kaldı.
All right.
Maybe I can translate this.
Go ahead, Gül.
Well, the same situation is valid for Bağkur as well. They have also, limited institutional support. Ne zaman demiştin yapılamayan sergi, Engin?
2000'lerin başından itibaren Cultural Capital. We haven't
Yok.
Cultural Capital.
Hayal biliyor dedin. Sizin yapamadığınız bir sergi vardı.
2023.
New York sergisi yapacaktık.
2024.
Tamam. So in 2023, Engin couldn't, couldn't organize an exhibition due to this financial and institutional support. It was one of the instances, he said.
One more question, and to the Hayal. Hayal, do you believe the Kurds have the bourgeoisie, the Kurdish bourgeoisie? Do you believe that? Because I don't believe.
Well, I'm glad you answered that question. Before responding to your question, I have a question to Engin and you. Engin said there was Kurdish contemporary art in 1990s, in the middle of 1990s. You said, no, there wasn't. So in other discussions, it's a lot of things came out, and Engin said, with the Berlin Wall demolished, then West started centralizing their focus around authenticity, right? That's how Kurds maybe fell into that trap of victimhood, because that's the reality, right? There is active war going on between colonizers and Kurds. But he said later on, there was barely Orientalism, and later on this victimhood not really practiced. So chronologically, you disagree on when Kurdish contemporary art has started. That's interesting. I'd like to hear, maybe Zahra Institute has to do number 2 on this panel. I don't know. This is a great discussion. Then later on with, I think, Özlem's question, we came to understand how Kurdish art being displayed, or maybe open to the West. I don't think, I should not say it as I'm not an artist, and I don't feel that I should say anything about Kurdish contemporary art. But it seemed like Kurdish art became an art, or had an exit thanks to Istanbul and thanks to West, or kind of this is its way out, right? A ticket out for Kurdish contemporary art, at least for Northern Kurdistan. Then I think the question is, what is the difference between Western colonialist exhibitions holding Kurdish arts in their spaces versus our own direct colonialists that being historically violent on our spaces, on our identity, on our languages? Because I got confused when you started this discussion. This is just a note. I don't think we have time to go in details.
Yeah.
Bourgeois, I don't know, Şener. We have some people with money, but money does not mean we have bourgeois.
Yes.
So maybe there are some, but they don't identify themselves as Kurds. Who knows? Maybe some of you know these people. I would like to leave it here.
Thank you so much, Khayal. I'm sorry, Gül. I'm sorry, Gül. We are actually running out of time. I need to wrap this up. Perhaps if the audience have other questions, Gül, you too, you can contact us, email us.
You can send them personally.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I would like to conclude our Q&A section. I'd like to extend a special thanks to Şener Özmen, whose vision and collaborative efforts have made this panel possible. I love all this engaging interaction between all of you. We are incredibly thankful as well to our panelists who have worked very hard preparing for this panel. And thank you to our audience members, Zorspas, for your support and for being part of this important conversation. And if you'd like to rewatch the event, a video recording, like I said, should be available on Zahra Institute's YouTube and Facebook page within a few days. Please feel free to contact me too if you have further questions that you'd like me to forward to our panelists at outreach@zahrainstitute.org. We hope to see you at our next event on Kurdish Madrasa culture on November 12th.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Gelek spas. Salam, hürmet.